but if there was one rule to protect leaders when managing people, what would that be?
I'm going to say two.
Okay.
Breaking
Go to.
Be proactive and address matters timely. Don't let them slide. The situation can't happen today, and you pick it up in 2 months' time. That's just not going to cut it. So be proactive, address things timely, have the hard conversations. Don't ignore it. And finally, document everything, no matter how small it might seem or minor to you. Document everything. Now, you don't need to have a formal letter. Just send yourself an email, dot points, the conversations you've had, whatever it may be. Document, 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 because that is what you're going to have to show if you end up in the commission.
Yeah, I think that message has been pretty clear, is it? So making sure that if you end up going to Fair Work Commission, that you've got evidence,
Correct. And that you've
like
followed a
anything,
process
and you've
and
had a
followed your
process.
own processes. So
Yeah,
make sure you don't just have these policies in relation to this area downloaded from Google that's not relevant for your business, because you want to make sure that your policies are written for you and
yeah,
your business and your DNA.
beautiful. Oh, I like this one actually. Casey, how long does a warning last? Example, if I give 3 warnings before dismissal, is there a time frame where they're no longer valid? Great question.
Great question. So it depends. I know that's not a great answer, but a lot of the time, it's not a lot. If you're under an enterprise bargaining agreement, so an enterprise agreement that might be connected to a union, a lot of the time, like I've worked in places that warnings last for 12 months, so to speak. That's in writing. Depends if you've got anything in your policies that's in writing, they only last X amount of time. If we're writing policies, for a business, we generally don't put a time frame in those enterprise agreements. They'll be in because that's what the union will want. But if there's nothing in writing, nothing in the awards, policies, contracts, then there's no defined timeline. However, if you ended up in front of a commission and you're using a warning from 3 years ago, I really don't think it's going to fly. It will depend on the nature, the situations of these warnings all interconnected, or is one for one type of matter, one's for another, like completely irrelevant. That will take it up. I would generally say around that 12-month-ish mark, give or take. But again, there's no formal hard and fast rule unless you do have it in your policies or enterprise agreements.
That's where your policies come into it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Got another one here. If someone fails to meet their expectations off their job description, is that behaviour or conduct? For example, a manager fails the manager their direct reports.
Yep. So if a manager was failing to manage their direct reports, that would deem part of conduct because they're failing to do their job, their tasks. It would depend on, so that it could be a little bit of both, but it would be mainly conduct. So if you're employed as a manager to look after a certain number of other managers or employees and you're not managing them, that's a part of your job. That's your task. That's what you're employed to do. That would fall under conduct.
Okay. Do the same rules apply to full-time, part-time, and casual? Good question.
Yes, so full-time and part-time is the same thing, doesn't matter what label. Casual, yes, casual still have to abide by the rules, the processes, etc. In terms of, do the same rules apply if you need to go down a formal disciplinary, I can't say the word, path? Some could say no because they're casual. I can just say you're out the door. There's no longer any shifts, and that is correct. However, if this casual has a long-term employment, regular, consistent hours, that would not be recommended. It would be recommended that you address the performance issues just like they were a permanent employee. So don't have the mindset of just because someone's casual, they're out the door when they stuff up, because you need to show that you follow procedural fairness as well.
Do you always have to have a meeting with an employee if issuing a warning, or can you issue just a written formal warning?
Okay, so I'm going to make some assumptions in that question, so I apologize if I'm assuming wrong. That's the employee has done a certain thing or gone against policy, and you want to issue them a warning. You can't just send them a warning. You need to follow, if you believe it could end up as a warning, you need to follow the formal disciplinary process, which is invite them to a meeting, outline the items, the allegations we're going to discuss, their opportunity to respond, offer of a support person, what this is following, potential outcomes. Have that meeting, hear them out, have a conversation, respond. I would never sit there and say within that conversation, okay, we're going to issue a warning. Always have a break, an adjournment, whether that is, okay, we're going to have 10 to go away and talk about and consider your responses. You always want to show consideration, and then you regroup and say, look, unfortunately, the outcome is, it's quite serious. We're going to be issuing you a formal warning. That warning will come later today or tomorrow, and we'll send it to you. So never have that warning preempted under the table, so to speak. We've seen that too many times.
Very, very good point. Is it enough to have it documented? So just in case I'm not quite sure where this came out, but is it enough to have it documented in your own files that a conversation has taken place, or would you recommend it's also sent to the employee covering off it's been discussed? So more related to general conversations that might come up later as an issue.
Yeah, look, I think to safeguard yourself even more, if you were to send them an email just to say, hi, Paul, as discussed today, we discussed these matters. This is what we have agreed to try and improve. And so then they have a record of it, depending on the situation. Sometimes you should do that, sometimes you shouldn't. Again, unfortunately, these type of situations are all case by case. It's not a one hard, fast rule. If it was, I'd sit here and tell you the perfect formula, but every situation is different.
Yep. It's a good point. What if performance is not improved because of a capability issue, not a willing attitude issue?
So then that would determine is there any opportunity that the person can be retrained,
Yep.
whether that's internal on the job learning or external? Is there a way, if that's not an option, can these tasks or this function be removed from them onto someone else and they're replaced with other things? At the end of the day, if there's no, they're just not capable of doing their job, we have tried, we have done absolutely everything we can, and you can show that, then it could be that they're not fit to perform their duties in which they've employed in, and that's where it would be critical that you have the right employment contract and the right position description. If you don't have those things, you're in a bit of strife. But that is what that potentially could lead to dismissal, but you would want to be very, very clear, very careful on how you do that, because at the end of the day, you did employ them for these duties. If the role has changed over time, that is a little bit different, but yeah.
Okay. And I think that, look, a lot of this just comes back to, with a couple of minutes to go, we've got a couple of questions still, but just policies, having them absolutely documented. So us as employers have a pathway to follow. Because if you don't have it documented and there's no policies, what are you following? You're actually not following anything.
Correct.
And I've been in situations where, again, nowadays, in particular, I can think of one again, engaged a marketing person. They told us what they can do, but when it got to performing the role, they clearly didn't know what they were doing. So now I've changed the way that I interview. I don't say, tell me what you've been doing, show me what you've been doing.
Yeah.
So physically show me, especially
Yeah.
if it's to do with, I don't know, video editing is a classic example,
Yeah.
because they can't lie. Everyone
Yes.
tends to lie on resumes or
Yeah.
applications or shares they've got an extra degree here or an extra training course there because you can. But who
Yeah.
checks it? Not many people do. Um, if their role changes, hang on. If their role changes due to trying to getting them to perform, can you reduce their wages to reflect the reduction in responsibilities? Ooh,
Oh, yeah,
come on,
that's a
Anna.
tricky one. So
Yeah.
that would potentially form under a restructure slash redundancy scenario. So that is not necessarily look, the restructure could have been triggered because of the performance issues, but that's why you have to be very clear in what you do. You can't turn around and reduce someone's wages without mutual consent or agreement. Not many people are going to agree to do that. However, if their role becomes redundant, but there is redeployment opportunities in this role over here, the role that they were in worth 80, this one's worth 70. And if they choose to take it, well, that's a way you can reduce wages. But just reducing wages just because you're making changes, they don't necessarily have to agree. It's a very, very complex space to play in. So, is this a restructure that results in their role becoming redundant? But we've got redeployment into this role. You're suitable for this role. You've got the skills and the experience, but this role comes with this price tag. Then they either accept or decline.